Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Eric Smigel, Chair of Arts Alive SDSU. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for Native American Arts and Advocacy, a presentation featuring Dr. Vince Whipple, our 2021-2022 Artist in Residence, and Professor Randy Reinholz from the School of Theater, Television, and Film. Please note that we are recording this event. We'll begin this afternoon with the Kumeyaay land acknowledgement. For millennia, the Kumeyaay people have been part of this land. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the San Diego State community, we acknowledge this legacy. We promote this balance and harmony. We find inspiration from this land, the land of the Kumeyaay. Arts Alive SDSU is dedicated to providing opportunities for students, faculty, and staff at San Diego State University to engage in the arts as an integral part of a comprehensive education that promotes creative research, interdisciplinary collaboration, professional innovation, and personal enrichment on campus and in the community. The Artist in Residence program was designed to enlist a professional visual or performing artist to work with the entire university to celebrate our underrepresented communities. Generously sponsored by the Division of Student Affairs and Campus Diversity, the residency contributes directly to one of the stated goals of the strategic plan: to foster and sustain an environment where all students, faculty, staff, and alumni feel welcomed, supported, and valued by the university. A key activity to fulfilling this goal is to produce a broad assortment of compelling artworks that enrich our campuses and reinforce our institution's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. For this second year of the Artist in Residence program, we're fortunate to be working with American Indian performing artist and educator, Vince Whipple. Based in Riverside, Dr. Whipple is an enrolled member of the Navajo tribe of Arizona and is also descended from the Oglala Sioux tribe of South Dakota. And he has worked with tribal communities in Southern California for over 30 years. He received a doctoral degree in education from Fielding Graduate University in Santa Barbara, a Master of Arts degree in American Indian Studies from UCLA, and a Bachelor of Arts degree in anthropology from Harvard University. Since 1991, he has been the artistic director for the Wichozani Native American Dance and Theater Company, a performance ensemble focusing on cultural revitalization through Native music, dance, theater, and storytelling. Dr. Whipple previously served as the Director of Tribal Relations for CSU San Bernardino, and also as the coordinator for the Native American Student Center at Cal Poly Pomona. Here at SDSU, Dr. Whipple will work closely with the Department of American Indian Studies, the Native Resource Center, and the Native American Student Alliance, and he will meet with different academic units and student centers across campus to explore issues of arts activism and Native and Indigenous communities. These conversations will inform his design of an original performance event that will take place on our San Diego campus in spring 2022. For this afternoon's event, he will share aspects of his work as it relates to the intergenerational passage of Native American artistic traditions, and he will be joined in conversation by Professor Randy Reinholz, the co-founder and artistic director emeritus of Native Voices at the Autry. Over the course of their discussion, feel free to make comments in the chat box, and if you'd like to pose questions to Dr. Whipple or Professor Reinholz, please post them in the Q&A. And now it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Vince Whipple and Professor Randy Reinholz.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Dr. Whipple. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what we just heard?
Yes, that's a Lakota prayer song. The words say, Grandfather, Great Spirit, take pity upon us. The people are looking for healing. And I thought it was appropriate for this time. The healing that we all need, the healing that's needed throughout the world. And so I just wanted to share that particular song from our Indian nations, from the Sioux people. Again, a prayer song for healing.
Thank you, Dr. Whipple. Just to give a little context, I've had the opportunity to work with Dr. Whipple over the years, and it's going to feel strange, I think, for him, and certainly for me, if I keep referring to him as Dr. Whipple. We've known each other as Vince and Randy for many years, so I think I'll move into the less formal, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Great, thank you. So you started with a song, and gosh, it's so meaningful when you tell us what the song is about. And we are in such a time of conflict on so many levels. And we do hope for pity and for higher powers to take pity on us and spare us. Why'd you decide to start with a song?
This residency is about Native music, Native dance, and I do both. I grew up taking part in the social gatherings, ceremonies of my father's people, the Lakota Sioux, and also my mother's people, the Dene Nation of Arizona. And so it was, given to me, by my family, the songs, the dances, the stories about our histories. And the first thing that I found that was comfortable for me was the songs. As a child, I just would hum them to myself, and as I got older, I started hearing the words a little more, and I started asking those questions. With my elders in my family, I'd say, what was that song for again? What does it mean, and why do we use it? And so, those things, those knowledges were shared with me. As I got older, I ventured a little bit more into the dance side, and started participating in more types of ceremonies and other types of native dances. I started dancing with other dance groups beyond just my tribes, and was given permission to dance various tribal dances. And so both the songs and the dances go hand in hand. But for me, I was a singer first before I was a dancer, and I think that really informed my outlook on both. I know the dancing side and I know the singing side. So as a dancer, I know what I feel is a good song, and as a singer, I also know what what I should be singing to make a good song for a dancer. So not only is it balanced just on an individual, but within me, I try to find that balance.
I love that. But so many things come to mind. I think for a lot of people, what you're talking about, the idea that these traditions and ways of learning came from your family, from your people, where you were reared, just brings up all kinds of questions. Like, first of all, I want to ask you questions, and then I'm like nervous because, I'm asking you kind of private stuff. Like, it's about your family and how it works and how faith works and so forth. So as you interact with people, I bet a lot of people aren't going to know like what the rules of the road are. How do they talk to you about those things? So what's some advice you can give to people like who want to interact with you on a meaningful level, but as they start to wander things into areas that might be private, like either what advice do you have for them, or how do you handle those situations, when people start to, they go from, hey, I'm interested in you, Vince, to prying, like, how old are you, or how much do you weigh? Those kinds of questions where we learn somewhere along the way not to ask. So how do you handle that, or what's your advice?
Yeah, I've been in the public arena, with the music and the dance, beyond just the ceremonies and the social gatherings. Several of the contexts that I've been in, the Knott's Berry Farm, different dance groups, in non-native contexts, at the Autry Museum, for instance. It's taking the stories, it's taking the dance, it's taking the songs and putting them out. And there's certain songs that are very private, for my family, but also for my tribes. And we've really been instructed not to put those out there. But there's others that are okay. For instance, there's a lot of the songs that I will put in the public, are the powwow songs, and that's okay, because the powwow it's a public venue. A lot of tribes participate in that, but non-natives come, and they come and they watch, and they also participate and they dance. And so those songs are public, and those have always been okay for me to put out there. There's some songs that are mine. When I say mine, they're original melodies that I've come up with, and original melodies that I've acquired, acquired in a spiritual sense, in the sense that I dreamt about them. I heard them in a dream, and learned the right way to sing those, and learn like what they were used for. And actually, a couple of those songs I used at the Native Voices. I forget which production it was, but the scene was for Scene Carmelo and Gil Birmingham, and it was a father-daughter scene, and I was just kind of struggling with that. Well, in between rehearsals, I was at a gas station. I saw a homeless person sitting there, and after I got the gas, I gave this person some food. And as I drove away, this melody just popped into my head, and I thought, wow, that's it. That's the song I was looking for. So in a sense, I was given like a gift, because I did the right thing. I was given that song. So I have that as a personal song, and I put it in that play, for the two of them. And so kind of grateful for that. So it just depends. There's certain things that I will ask, my family. I'll ask the elders about, and I'll say, hey, I want to do this, and there's a need for it. There's an opportunity for people to learn, and so I have to explain myself. And more often than not, they'll say, okay, just be respectful of it, of the tradition, make sure others are being respectful, and you have our permission to do it. So it runs the gamut of no, I won't do it, no, I can't do it, to yes, I can do it, and above all, have to make sure that it's usually okay. So
That's a beautiful story. Thank you for that. And it kind of leads us to our first bullet point here. I will check the chat as we go. You don't need to worry about having to do that. But we thought maybe we would offer a little bit of a definition of intersection between social justice and culturally specific work, and to some extent talk a little bit about your career. So the idea that social justice is often bringing attention to something that maybe the larger culture has ignored, is probably a pretty generous way of saying it. Probably the larger culture has buried it or worked pretty hard to not address it. And I think the United States is trying to grow up and address some of the challenges of the past. So your work has been an intersection between cultural justice and culturally specific work. And by that, I really am talking about you're an Oglala Sioux guy and you're Dene. And so you bring very specific ways of working. And I think it's lost on a lot of people that, here we are with well over 525 recognized indigenous nations here in the United States, and about 270 waiting to be recognized by the government. So that's a lot of diversity even within Native American. And you're very clear about talking about yourself and your elders, your family, where you come from. And I wondered did you have something you wanted to add to that, or talk a little bit more about that? You want me to throw you a question to kind of put that in context? What's easy for you?
Yeah. In the 1950s, there was a governmental policy called relocation. And a lot of the reservation Native Americans were moved to the big cities, Los Angeles, Denver, Chicago, Cleveland, New York. It was a policy that was intended to give natives opportunities, but it was really kind of it really just separated natives, from their foundation, their families, their cultural upbringing. And here in Los Angeles, a lot of natives from the plains, Northern Plains and Southern Plains, ended up out here, and a lot of these individuals were Powwow people, and they instituted a real strong powwow tradition out here that's continued, that grew the 60s, 70s, and I moved out here in the 90s, and by the time I got here, it was well on its way. And so there was a very strong communal event, and so all these relocated families, kept that tradition alive. They still maintain their connections to their family, but California, Los Angeles, San Diego had become their home, and so all these powwows sprung up. And so these families kept those traditions of music, song, drumming, dance, ceremony alive. And so, I think that's really pertinent to, the current discussion, about this residency. And so, but relocation also had a deleterious effect in that a lot of the youth of these families, the children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren now, are really disconnected. I did a lot of work in Los Angeles in the 90s, and the children that we worked with, the native youth, they didn't know their traditions. They didn't speak their languages. They really didn't know a lot about the traditions, and there was a lot of tribes, not just one or two, but many. And so part of the work that I did through the Southern California Indian Center and the TANF program was to reconnect these youth with traditions. One of those being the powwow, but we also tried to connect them with elders in the community, bringing those elders, to the agency sites, and let them talk to the families, talk to the youth, let them hear these languages for the first time. So a relocation kind of broke the families apart. But fortunately, the native community said, hey, we need to do something. We need to do something about this. We need to keep all these traditions alive, and we need to help one another in it. During that same time, I also saw here in Southern California with the Southern California tribes that they revitalized their bird singing, their bird song traditions. At the beginning of early 1990s, I would just see a group of older men singing. In about 20, 30 years, wow, there's just these big, amazing bird gatherings where you have the youth, you have families, you have adults, you have elders, females, and it's just amazing to see that revitalization, to see all these bird gatherings, pop up. My daughter and I were just at the Morongo Powwow this weekend. And the bird songs got just as much billing as the powwow dancing. So here they are going hand in hand. And so even here in California, the tribes have seen the importance of keeping the singing traditions alive, because those songs, I know the bird songs, they tell a whole story of creation, about where the Southern California people came from and how they ended up where they are, and all the things that happened in the world. And so all these songs for Native people, they have those instructions about life. They tell the stories of the people, of individual families. So really, that part of Native people, suffering, they've had to become their own advocates and really kind of, take on the responsibility of maintaining their own traditions and culture.
There's a lot in that answer. Thank you, Vince. I'm an old Choctaw guy, so I've been on campus for about 25 years, and you said a few things that I'd kind of like to unpack for the audience. And I think you can help me with this. So you said you came out here in the 1990s. Just real quick, why'd you come out here to Southern California? We're trying to become a movie star. Like, you got the looks for it. What were you doing?
Well, I came out here after I graduated from Harvard, and I came to UCLA to start my graduate studies. I started in the School of Public Health. My interest at that time was medicine. I had wanted to become a physician, an MD. But as I started through the program, I kind of migrated over to American Indian Studies, and I found a community there. Found a whole community of Native professors, a whole resource library, computer lab, spaces for students, and there was and a lot of programs, outreach. One thing that I started when I was there, I helped start the American Indian Recruitment program there, where we tried to get more Native students involved in not only UCLA but in higher education in general. And so we talked to the local tribes and a lot of the community-based organizations, and we started talking to the youth, and we looked at education as a way, as a new pathway, as an emerging pathway. And I'm really glad to see that happening here on San Diego State, that the efforts have really been going on a long time, and there's a lot of good things going on campus, and they have been for years. I mentioned the powwows that have been going on since the 50s out here. Well, San Diego State has had a very vibrant powwow. I know it's been offline for a couple of years, but it's going to be back in the spring, and that's been one thing that's been on in Southern California. The powwow circuit. Everyone has been looking forward to the powwows coming back, and people coming back to San Diego State for that. So I did come out here to continue my education, but along the way I met Native actors, and they started saying, hey, you want to get they're doing this project. I can give you a contact. So that's why I started venturing out, doing even it was background film work, doing some theater work, appearing in some television commercials. I think this is the only place you could really do that. But I like I said, I didn't plan to have a career in the performing arts. Music and dance is something which has always been part of my life. But education has always kind of been, my number one goal in my life.
Thanks for that. I want to echo something because I know we've got a number of professors and students listening. So I just want to echo, you met some professors, you found some space where you could be you, and you found some programs that resonated with your life goals and values. I think that's important that we look for those things when we're young, and that some of us who have a few years behind us might be pointing out, and look to make ourselves available as professors to students to look for a space that's needed and figure out if we can help some of our higher ups identify space, and then what the programs are that young people need to succeed in life. You also took your own passion, your own energies, which were focused on other people, not your own fame. And you saw where the connections were in the community. And really, you've talked a lot about need in the community, because you and I come from a people who've been overlooked for a while. Okay, so tell folks how you met us over at Native Voices. Vince and I got a chance to work together. I had Jean Bruce Scott is a co-founder of Native Voices and is with us today. She's online. And we were just starting to get going, and we had our first production where we had enough money to pay the actors a union scale. It's 2002. It was Jump Kiss. So what was it like on the other side of that coin, to be an artist, to hear that, I'm not just asking you to play for free. We actually have a chance to pay people. And, what was that like for you as a young artist?
Well, again, what you and Jean created, I think, was really a really good thing. There's a lot of Native actors out here, and at that time, they're looking for work. They're looking to develop their craft. Emerge as as artists themselves. As actors. Because they want to tell those stories. And so I was, at that time I was, starting to look around some of the casting notices. I think I saw it at that time, maybe in Backstage West. But I don't remember one of the powwow people. It might have been Terry Walker that told me, hey, they're casting up there. So, we've been friends for a few years. And so I made my way to the audition. I believe I auditioned actually as one of the actors first, but then I think you all said, hey, if you have the notice said, if you have instruments or you do some kind of music, do that too. So I did my thing, and I said, hey, by the way, I brought my instruments. Okay, let's hear you. So I played, and I think that was the connection that we made. Was on that side. The music and that traditional part of which was going to be, we would combine with the stories, and then combine that with the all native cast, the all native production leadership, and so. It was really amazing to walk into something like that. I know that outside of like some of the, like I mentioned, some of the Indian agencies and tribes, you're used to seeing a community of Native people. So to see that in Hollywood is wow, that's really something new. And I think early on a lot of the cast members were pretty amazed to see that. And so to see the longevity of that, all the support and the opportunities that you've given, and I've watched as fellow castmates, some of them have gone on to some good notoriety. It's good to have walked that path with them. Even though I may be following another path right now, but we stood side by side, as we tried to make those opportunities and tell those stories. And I think one thing I'd like to share about that same time was. I was cast in the movie Wind Talkers, and I had one of the speaking parts in the beginning as the classroom instructor, helping to teach the Navajo code, to the 30 plus who were going to become the Navajo code talkers. So, MGM Sony put that on, and directed by John Woo, and so I think the cast, we were even the supporting cast, we were really proud to tell that story. To tell the story of our grandfathers who, in World War II were asked to speak their language. Whereas, when they were younger, in the boarding schools, they had the language beaten out of them, and so, even now, my parents and, my grandparents, it's when I asked them to speak it, it's very hard for them to do that. And so, we were glad to really honor them and, have the Navajo language spoken, but then to represent that participation of Native Americans in the defense of this country. So that was another story that happened, and that again, it was an opportunity, and it was authentic, and so I was glad to have held the role I did, and like I said, all these opportunities that are starting to emerge. It's good to see this new wave of Native performers be up and coming.
So I'm going to echo a few things you said there. So Navajo people, you said your grandparents and so forth were in boarding school, and the language was forbidden, even to the point of physical violence for the child who spoke the language. And yet the language was part of the reason Americans were able to win World War II, because these young people kept the language and didn't succumb to the beatings, but they kept the language, and that's part of the reason we won the war. And of course, you get a chance to participate in the reenactment of that. So just echoing things for the audience that may not have the background to fully appreciate. Wait a second. So you're Oglala Sioux and Dene. Isn't that a long way away from each other? What's that? What was that like as a kid going back and forth? Like how many miles? And how'd you get back and forth? What was that like?
Right. Well, I would spend school years in Rapid City, South Dakota. I went through the school system there. Summertime, I would, and my siblings, we would spend the summers in Arizona. Spend a lot of time with our aunts and uncles, our cousins, and our grandparents. And where they lived, it was way out in the middle of nowhere, middle desert. There was no running water, no electricity. So it was a different time. That was life for them. We got to experience that, and we got to see how far we've come. And so balancing that was geographically they're separated. But then for us, it's a part of us, the two tribes and the traditions, and we were kind of always taught that, we have to learn both. We can't just learn one, but we do have to keep both sides of, those traditions alive. I know a lot of today's natives and today's young native youth, they're actually more than one. They're more than two. They're like 3, 4. I've met some youth that, wow, even 5 and 6. And I think at a few of the powwows recently, there was maybe one of the head boy dancers, girl dancers. They were like about 6 tribes, I believe. So that's pretty remarkable that they're keeping those pathways alive. Keeping the traditions going.
I was at a conference for higher education and theater, and one of the groups out of Fort Lewis, I'm sorry, has a large Native population, and the students had come together and written a play, and the title of the play was "We're Native and the folks who put on the conference just said we're Native, and the kids were like, no, the point of the title is we're also something else. And I think this young generation has a sense of these different cultures influencing each other, and they don't want to be put in a position to have to choose, this side of the family over this side of the family, and it can get real complicated. So I really appreciate you sharing that part of your story. I just wanted to say, I don't know if I ever shared with you, but my family was part of the work program, and so St. Louis was the destination for that family, and we were very rural, and I remember times where we didn't have running water or electricity as a kid growing up. And I often tell my students now, I learned that my power in life came from having some of those experiences. And when I was a kid, I was ashamed of it. And it took me a while to realize where my power was in life. And so I'm always trying to encourage students to not be ashamed of how they got here, but to understand that they are here and what can they do with these opportunities. And so I love that part of your story, where you're telling about how you got to your master's program at UCLA, and you're part of the glamorous industry of film and television, and you're an actor on stage, but then your work took you in a different direction. And you've talked a lot about community and education. And so let's see, so we kind of are in the mid-aughts, somewhere in there around 2005, 2010. So just real quick, let's go through, because we've got to get on to a couple other questions. So how did you go from being a young person in college that cared a lot to a grown man with a family supporting them, and what employment did you find, and how did you keep your value of connection and community?
Right. Well, I met my wife actually at the Verona Powwow in '94. We didn't see each other for about 3 years. In '97, we reconnected at a powwow in Los Angeles. So that community, really kept us together. And I know it keeps, like I said, it keeps families and the Native community together. And we just, got closer after that. We married, and we stayed out here. We have three beautiful girls, a teen, and 2 grade schoolers. Along the way, my wife finished her degree in civil engineering. I finished my master's, and then I went on to do a doctoral degree in education at Fielding Graduate University. As I was doing all this, I found work with the tribes. I worked for Morongo, Saboba, Torres Martinez, and then recently 6 years with the Rincon tribe in North San Diego County. So, I just found a niche for myself as a Native person, contributing to my education background and skills, to building tribal communities. They're really developing. I think gaming out here has been very successful. It's helped the tribes build and grow, and so they had a lot of building to do internally in terms of their internal infrastructure, their social service programs, education, recreation, culture. And that was kind of just where I was, and just happened to be in the right place at the right time to be making contributions to tribes. And so my tenure with Rincon ended in about 2019, and that was when I made my way back to higher ed. I was actually at Cal Poly Pomona about 15 years ago, and I was at CSUSB in about 2019. And again, working with tribal communities, working with the Native students on campus to develop programs, to try and create opportunities, connecting tribes, tribal people, tribal organizations with the campus. And I think that both of these campuses realize, hey, we haven't been doing a good job of supporting natives, and that's those opportunities. Native people for a long time have just been overlooked, in a lot of studies, you'll see that a lot of statistics were given up for other ethnic groups, but like, where's the native stats? Were there no natives taking part in the study or something? So really, natives have just been left out of the conversation. And I think that's why natives a lot recently, I've observed that, they have to be their own advocates. They have to kind of emerge and kind of force their way to the table and say, hey, we're here too. We have these concerns. And, I've seen that, in campuses. I've seen it, just in society in general. I've been lucky that not only have I, been in tune with, some work in the performing arts, but also on the tribal side, as well as in, higher ed and working to just, try and be an advocate in any way I can to, help tribal people, especially Native youth and families, and do what I can to just, be a good voice for tribal people.
So quick anecdote and then follow it with a question. So Kenny Leon is a Broadway director, and the Tonys were this weekend. And he directed the play A Soldier's Story that won a Tony for Best Revival. And he was an adjunct professor here at San Diego State last year. Really prominent guys, won a couple of Tonys. And he gave a wonderful speech. I encourage people to go online and look it up. Kenny Leon, A Soldier's Play. But right at the end, when he was advocating for the inclusion of more Black people on Broadway, he said, and we stand on Native land. And I see them not taking part and not getting opportunities in our industry, and they should. So the importance of allyship, I think, is really crucial. And it's high time that we do stand together, folks who have been overlooked, whether it's other BIPOC folks standing with Native folks, the LGBTQ community standing with BIPOC people, people with disabilities, us standing for them. It's important that we do ally up. But what I wanted to ask is, so I want a real quick description. Think of like one or two projects you did. You said I worked in Native community, I did some work, and it occurs to me that sometimes people discount that work. And so I want you to think of a story that would sort of exemplify, this was a project or some work that you did that you really value. And I'll just give you a quick story while you're thinking of it. When I was directing, and I had a show at the Public Theater in New York, and I was excited. And so I told one of my colleagues across campus, hey, I've got a show at the Public Theater. And he said, don't you worry, one day you're going to get on the big time stage. You're going to make it one day, because his idea of the Public Theater meant that I was working in some disheveled, sad program. And so sometimes people assign me that same lack of accomplishment as a Native person. And so I wanted you to talk a little bit about your just one or two experiences that exemplify what you did in community, what you're proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned that when I was a graduate student at UCLA, I was actually a classmate of Dr. Dave Kemper. I'm going to say shout out to Dave. Good to see all the work you're doing here. But we did our master's program, and I worked with a group of students to create the American Indian Recruitment Program. And I mentioned that it was an outreach program, and we decided that we wanted to connect with the urban Native youth in LA County, to connect them with college, let them know what college is about, let them know what kind of opportunities are out there, not only UCLA, which we brought on the campus, but we reached out to all of our other colleagues on our other campus and say, hey, look, we want to bring our students around. We want to show them Cal State Long Beach. We want to just USC, and let them know that when you graduate, there's more that you can do. There's Native communities. There's little pockets of families, collegial families, and you're going to make a lot of friends. You're going to learn something, and you're going to be able to apply that some way to help others. And so we wanted to kind of create something. Well, the AIR program is still going now. You know, that's their bread and butter program is that outreach that they're working. They still work with the Southern Californian Center. They work with the TANF program. There's a few other programs that they work with. And so, you know, there's a real value in student generated, you know, ideas. We were students at that time, and now it's a real formal part of UCLA's outreach. And it's a nice network that you know, ties in education to the missions of these social service agencies. So I'm really proud to have been part of that. You know, to see it growing, to see it going, and to seeing, you know, how Native youth are really benefiting from that.
Thanks. And just, I bet you will remember this when I say, but the AIR program been here at San Diego State for a couple of decades. And San Diego State hosts some of their activities in this region. And we're proud to have young people in this region get a chance to benefit from their expertise. So I see that Jean has a question. So Jean, I'm not sure if you want to type your question in or they can pop you on screen. And then if some of the folks that have worked with the AIR program, somebody wants to give a quick testimony about that, we'd be appreciative. And if not, no worries. So what do we think? Is Jean going to come on screen and ask a question? Let's see. Great. So, and then Eric is just saying to everyone, you know, we're happy to take questions and comments as we go. So there you go. We're happy to do that. We're still kind of working out how we're going to take a question at the moment. I feel like I'm a DJ kind of filling time, waiting for our celebrity guest to figure out where he's headed. So once Jean knows how to ask that question, Jean, you're supposed to be able to speak. Can you unmute and let's see if we hear you?
I did unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Oh, hi. I just wanted to, first of all, say hello to Vince. I have such wonderful memories of working with you both on Jump Kiss and then later when you wrote your own play and brought it to Native Voices as well. I wanted to know, as you're there at San Diego State, if you'll be working with anybody over in the theater department on any kind of Native projects there.
I'll say yes. And I think there's a lot of possibilities. You know, I have some defined responsibility, some defined set goals that I'm going to achieve in the next 9 months. And I think you know, whatever cross collaborations are going to happen, I believe will. So I'm you know, keeping an open mind, an open door, and as I venture out kind of over the fall, starting to meet people, meeting students, staff, and faculty. You know, I'm really looking forward to learning, you know, myself about the campus and a lot of issues that are going on in the San Diego area. I'm based up in Riverside in the Inland Empire. But yeah, absolutely. You know, I've you know, like I said, I ventured into theater over the last you know, 2-3 decades, and you know, I found a home there. And you know, it's something, like I said, I didn't set a personal goal to be in the theater when I started out. You know, trying to develop a professional pathway, you know, back in high school, and I had to kind of think how actually Native dance and Native music is a form of theater, and I think that's one thing that I think you and Randy have made a solid statement about, that it is legitimate theater, and I think there's other companies out there that have emerged and have said that, and so, you know, Native people can be proud of their own theater traditions, and I think they should voice that out, you know, publicly, and saying, you know, these are our traditions, these are our methods. And so, you know, that's part of this fellowship residency, is to be able to, you know, share the methods that I have as a Native musician, as a Native dancer, and, you know, share the work that I've been doing, both in the community and also in the theater and in the public arena.
Thanks for
love
that,
that.
Vince.
Thank
Thanks,
you
Jean.
so
Sorry to
much.
cut you off. Please go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I love that, and the way in which you tell stories, both with song and dance and written theater, and combining all of those things is really exciting. And I hope that you get to bring that to some of the theater folk over there.
Thank you.
As if that were a plant in the audience. You know, Vince, you've said you're in a listening stage and you're trying to hear what you think needs to be done and listen to what people want to be done. I think if you could just blue sky for a minute, like what are 1, 2, 3 things, real short descriptions of things that might be fun for you to do, not knowing anything about San Diego State or the professors or what's going on here? What would be fun for you to do with young people here? Obviously, you're going to talk. Obviously, you're going to give a demonstration of what you do. What else might be fun for you?
I think really letting the campus know about the the vibrant traditions of the Kumeyaay people, with the bird singing, the bird dancing. I think as students and the public become more aware of who are Native people, where they come from, and I'm not just talking in this country, but internationally. I've taken questions about Native people, some very simple, some a little more complex, but I think first bringing awareness to the campus about the traditions of San Diego, and it does lie with the Kumeyaay people, and they have a beautiful tradition, beautiful song cycles, dances, and it's it really ties the community, the young and the old. It ties their traditions back to their history, just to their beginning, where they originated, and it's really amazing, to me to learn these, to hear these stories. I'm hoping to be able to collaborate with our tribal liaison, Jacob. I understand he's a pretty remarkable bird singer, so I'd like to kind of give some depth to these conversations about Native music. I'll be talking about my tribal traditions, but then I'm hoping Jacob can enhance those conversations even more, and see how how do the different philosophies and perspectives, how do they differ, how are they similar. I met with him last week, and he really gave me an earful about about what he does, and a lot more about Kumeyaay traditions. So I think that's one thing. I think giving students in the community, an active experience. I know there's a powwow, and I think that's really wonderful for for the campus, and like I said, the larger community, in Southern California, to be able to come to San Diego, the San Diego State campus, and be part of this event. But I think bringing some sort of an active learning, whether it's hearing about songs. I remember when I was at UCLA, I was fortunate that Serrano Kuya elder Ernest Siva from Morongo was actually in the ethnomusicology department, as a professor teaching Native music, sharing bird songs, sharing a lot of different tribal songs, and giving the students an active experience singing these songs, learning the melodies. And so I know that's one really positive instance of students, being able to experience music. I think a few times he allowed me to kind of demonstrate, some dancing. And so, I think that's kind of a second thing is letting students see these things firsthand. Even if it's a demonstration. I know certain tribes are like I said earlier, a lot protective about their traditions, and so in certain settings they will share those things. Their songs, their dances, their stories. And so if I can get Jacob, he'll be able to gauge that, what's safe to put in a classroom and share with students. But definitely, there's a lot of excellent bird singing groups in the area, and I think that would be another thing. Is in addition to the powwow, I was saying that the bird singing traditions are starting to exist, side by side, with the powwow traditions, and maybe that might be something that needs to come to the powwow, or maybe the campus can put on a bird singing gathering, for the community, and I think that would be pretty remarkable. So I think those are two things. I'm sure there's many other, but I'll just kind of leave it at that for now.
Vince, people are asking questions. I just wanted to remind you, we've got about 3 minutes left. So just probably short answers to these few questions. One from Jennifer Clay. Halito, Dr. Whipple, your path is so unique and we appreciate the work you're doing. What advice would you give to current Native students who are trying to hold on to their culture while navigating a Western education?
Right. Stay in contact with your family. I know I went away for college, and even though I was pretty connected, when I went halfway around the country, I lost that contact. I was looking for the Native community, and although I was at Harvard, they didn't at that time have a really good student support program. It's since changed. They do have a good one now, but I had to find community. I found the next best thing. I found a peer group, really multicultural peer group, and so I would say that connect with the other Native students, find those Native professors and staff, and if you have to start your own club, if you have to start your own group, do this, start your own programs, reach out to the community, find an elder who will advise you, and just like I said, make those connections with the community.
Thanks, Vince. A question from Kay Gilbert. Dr. Whipple, are you interested in presenting in the community away from SDSU about the intersections between social justice and Native cultural traditions, for example, at a church?
Well, yes, that's also been part of my work. I've spent a good part of the last 30 years sharing Native music, Native dance. I don't specifically title it as social justice, but just the act of like I said, keeping it alive, is social justice itself. And so, yes, absolutely. I've gone to schools, gone to churches, gone to private parties, gone to conferences, theater, theme parks, just almost everywhere. I went to a preschool one time with, some 4-year-olds, a little tricky, but, yeah, I love to share, who I am, my traditions, with those who are willing to listen and learn.
Thanks, Vince. Eric, I see you're answering the question in the chat, so thanks for that. And of course, you're going to want to pop on at some point and tell us we're about to conclude, I know, so I invite you in whenever you like. Vince, I've asked all the questions. Is there anything you'd like to say? Is there something on your mind that we haven't gotten to?
No, I think we've been pretty comprehensive, and I think I just started this residency, and I'm coming in with open eyes. I was on campus 2 days last week, and I really met a lot of good people, and I was just amazed. It's different being in person as to Zooming, and really those person-to-person contacts are really great, and I'm looking forward to spending more time on campus. I wished it was longer than 9 months. I know it's going to come really quick, be end pretty soon, but hopefully, I'll try to keep those connections, beyond the 9 months, when the residency ends.
Thanks, Vince. And one thing we didn't get to, but I just want to let the audience know, is both you and I have talked about people have different family stories. Some people are in a position where they can say who their family is and they can be very clear about their indigenous connections and their heritage. And other people are from families where it's really complicated. They've heard that they're indigenous, they're not sure how to claim it, they're not sure what to talk about. And so you and I talked about maybe we can hold some sort of conversations for people that are in that somewhat uncomfortable space where they might feel like, oh no, I'm gonna be outed as an imposter if I say I'm indigenous, but my family's always said we're indigenous. So what do we do? And so you and I talked about maybe we can hold some time somewhere this academic year to help people ask questions, own all of who they are without sort of co-opting someone else's identity through that. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Did you have anything you wanted to say on that? I know Eric's just about to come in here.
No, and I think I've met a lot of Native people, who know a lot about who they are, their origins, and then I've met those that really know nothing about it. And I think, like I mentioned, a lot of Native youth are in that boat, in that situation. And I see my role, as a young elder now, to be a responsible elder, and share my knowledge, and share the traditions that I have, and make sure that certain traditions can continue on, and hopefully guide people in the right direction. And I know I see you do that all the time, and so I think we'd be a good collaborators, in trying to direct people to the right places and the right people.
Well, it seems like a good place to end. Hi, Eric. There you go.
Thank you so much, Dr. Whipple and Professor Reinholz. Super stimulating conversation. We look forward to several months, of course, of Dr. Whipple enriching our community. I just wanted to remind everyone that the recording of today's webinar will be available on the Arts Alive YouTube channel in a couple of days. And if you'd like to contact either Professor Reinholz or Dr. Whipple, their contact information, I believe, is being put in the chat. And also, if you'd like to schedule a session with Dr. Whipple for your class or your center, please send me an email directly at the address that I think will also be appearing in the chat. You're also, of course, welcome to follow Arts Alive SDSU on social media with our username at Arts Alive SDSU for all upcoming events. And finally, last word, we will be emailing a survey to everyone who registered for this event, and we would be grateful for your response, as it will help us improve our programming. So thank you again for joining us this afternoon, and have a wonderful evening.